Omahung, welcome Buddha Dharma Study Program participants. I'm unable to be with you personally, so you've got a video, and I won't be able to take questions and answers tonight. So if you want to have a discussion, you'll have to lead it among yourselves. But I've decided that this kind of presentation, particularly on tenets, is good to break up into several sections. Usually at the temple, I've just given 2 lectures a month, and that's really not enough for tenets. So I'm thinking that maybe if I produce 4 or 8 short videos on tenets, that'll be most helpful. The book I ask people to read is Cutting Through Appearances, and that has a Lama meditation and tenet system. However, there's also some useful things on the internet, charts, for example, that I found, and we can actually send those to you in PDF format. So that'll make it easier to study and to learn the tenet system. Tenets mean what is absolutely the rock bottom style and belief and realizations of the different schools that went to Tibet and were debated in Tibet and finally became both the logical and philosophical and metaphysical and meditative traditions. All the traditions are very close together, so the misunderstanding, particularly when Buddhism went to Tibet, was great. The Tibetans are very interested in being precise, and they systematized the teachings into 4 schools with various sub-schools. All the schools of Dharma in Tibet basically have a Madhyamikan system of various kinds, but they have different emphasis and they have different views on how we know things. So tenets is not just talking about what must be in reality, but also how we know what must be. How do we determine what a valid cognizer is? So this is a technical term that you don't have to learn a lot, but learn this one, okay? The Buddhist reality is different. There's not objective reality like in science and then a passive observer of that. Reality actually is what a Buddha sees, who would be a valid cognizer, seeing things clearly. So in learning the basic understandings and realizations of the different teachers in different schools, we are interested in finding out what their different understandings of reality is and how they came to know that. To be professional bodhisattvas, to really be of benefit to others, we not only need to know what something is, but also how to fix it. So in an example in like medicine or health, we can't just say be healthy and this is the body. We actually have to know what to do to stay healthy and how the body works. So even if one isn't a physician or nurse or health person, we need to know, like particularly these days, some basic hygiene and basic things about viruses, right? So for realization, for bodhisattvahood, for practitioners, we need to know not just how things are on a user level, but how to fix things and how to teach them to others. So I used to do, for a short period of time, make furniture, and I found that sitting in furniture, sitting in nice chairs, and appreciating nice chairs is very different than building them. So in building them, you actually need to know how they put together, and you need to know how to use the tools, and you need to know the parts, and you need to know how to make them strong or good looking or whatever. So when we're at this point in our study where we're looking at what the different realizations and the different propositions and tenets are of the different meditational schools, we're entering a real professional view. Up to now, we've become acquainted with Nagarjuna and Tsongkhapa. Many of you have read Shantideva, Bodhicharvatara with Geshe. We've started to go deeply into Maitreya Sangha literature by reading universal discourse literature. But the Mahayana Sutta Lankara. So we've got hopefully some idea where we're at, and enthusiasm about the practice. So we need to know before we start tenets why we're doing the practice and to have a lot of enthusiasm. That's one reason why I suggested people read this book, because it's actually half of it is a meditation. If we start studying without generating bodhicitta, refuge bodhicitta in the meditations, and approach scholarly work or tenets in kind of a ordinary consciousness, kind of a college consciousness, I think we'll get overwhelmed, or we'll just won't see the relevance. But if we do a meditation first and then study, it'll take on a deeper meaning, and also you'll see immediately why we're learning how to use these tools so we can build something and it can be useful. If tenets are just approached without refuge and bodhicitta, without seeing it as part of the path, it can be an interesting scholarly exercise, but it will be kind of dry, and we'll have a lot of tools, just like some people collect a lot of tools who like to do woodworking, or we could have a lot of ritual objects, but we wouldn't know how to use them. We wouldn't know how to benefit others. In order to help people with some secondary literature, I've asked Connor to PDF some material and send it out to you. But it's also present on the internet, but we're saving you some time. Dr. Burson, Alexander Berkson. I don't know if this shows up backwards, does it? Shouldn't? Okay. So he's talking about tenet system as part of the path, and this is an article we're going to send out, and you can check it out. And this is a whole text called Presentation of Tenets, which is different than the tenet, very close, but by a different author than the one in Cutting Through Appearances. So you'll get a slightly different take. This might be actually a little bit more readable, but I wanted you to read both of these if you want to. Presentation of Tenets. So then finally, I like show and tell. This is the download of charts. I feel like Mr. Rogers here. See, lots of charts. Actually, that's useful. Charts are useful because they give us a visual and a clear demarcation between different ideas. However, if we just look at charts, we won't get the process feel of working through these different presentations. The reason why we're reading original material is because I've wanted people to get into the lamas, into the scholars' way of presenting, the way of talking, the way they put forth an argument, the way they teach, so that people have to work through it themselves. Right now the screen's gone dark. Would that be we're doing a little tech here. All I got to do is do that. Okay. No, yes, no. Okay, we're back. Thank you. Should be okay. Good. I have my technical support here. So if we just try to memorize the answers without going through the process, or may say struggling with some of the arguments, we won't have the full experience, and we won't get to see how we think. So as I mentioned in the past, listening to someone's presentation and their arguments, so to speak, their debates in the text or debates with themselves, is supposed to give us some insight in how we're debating with ourselves. Because inside we have a lot of different narratives going. There isn't just one narrative. We have it's this way, and then we have another narrative that says, no, it's this way, it's this way. We might have several competing narratives. So learning tenets isn't just learning the right answers to things, it's learning how we do our internal conceptual narrative debate. That's really important. So that's why in the essays, I'm interested like how people come to believe or practice or think what they think. The culmination of this, the professional culmination, is from one point of view is learning how to meditate properly and teach properly, and for those who want to be taught, and learning how to debate properly. Some people watched the short presentation by Khonsa Rinpoche over the weekend, which was great, and we may be able to do something similar here. If you guys study tenets, we can learn it. So in Buddha Dharma, we want to have three things. We want freedom and realization for ourselves. We want freedom and realization for people who are interested, in other words, those people that are easy to teach. And we want to help people that disagree with us and bring them to clarity and bring ourselves to clarity by working with people that have different views. Shantideva and Bodhicharvatara talks many times about we need sentient beings, we need sentient beings. We need sentient beings because without sentient beings, we wouldn't be able to become realized. And I'm fond of saying we need to work with annoying people. So we need to actually clarify our own minds from our own side. We need to help those that want to be helped or want to learn about Dharma, but we have to also learn to work with people that are coming from a different point of view and to respect that point of view, but also to debate that point of view. So Buddhism isn't just about an internal cult, so we disagree with each other. We're willing to have dialogue with people. And to do that, we actually need to learn how to dialogue and debate based on certain logical principles, not just meditative, quiet realizations. The tenet system in the monasteries is understood as a process so that we culminate in understanding what particularly in the Gelug monastic system, is we come to see that the Prasangika Madhyamikan view is the highest. It's all the highest because we say that we don't assert anything as being inherently existent. Prasangika and Madhyamikans criticize others for being either inherently existent, which would be really non-Buddhist schools, to Buddhist schools that bring in inherent existence in the back door, so to speak. But in Prasanga Madhyamika, the consequentialist school, middle way consequentialist school, we make a fairly radical statement, fairly radical realization, which is there's no inherent existence whatsoever. Now, this can be misunderstood, and that's why to be nihilism, and that's why the great masters like Lama Tsongkhapa and Padmasambhava and so forth, Mipam and Longchenpa said, okay, we're asserting emptiness, but we're not asserting nihilism, or nothing exists. So how do things actually exist conventionally is a big part of learning tenets. It's easy to say everything's empty, everything exists only independence, everything exists only relatively, but we also want to know how things exist conventionally and how the mind works to understand this. Right now I froze up a little bit. I don't know whether that's a thing or we still have a video here. Maybe if I keep tapping here. We're still learning how it works. Maybe there.
It's still filming.
It's still filming, but we can't see it. Okay.
Here, let's just
Yeah.
do the